Hi, I finally had another impulse to make a walk and talk video. I wanted to be out here in the beautiful forest, walking in the fresh fallen snow, which is now kind of ice, and sharing with you about that impulse, about the creative pulse of life. And quite honestly, I've been struggling with it a bunch lately. I have been so excited to have had this huge impulse to step out into the world and live my purpose and doing this work full time by running a small business. And in that big pulse, there's been all these little exciting impulses to create things, create my blog, create videos for this YouTube channel, create offerings online, create my sacred space where I offer healings. And it can be really easy for me to fall into these really intense expectations that I have on myself about just how much I can produce through that creative pulse. And the really unfortunate thing is that I burnt myself out really quickly. I got really exhausted. And then I'm so hard on myself when I don't check everything off the list, or when I'm not producing, and constantly in that expansive space of the actual product that manifests from the creative pulse. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the ways that I'm working to cultivate a healthier relationship with all the aspects of the creative pulse and of the pulse of life. So let's take a moment. Just breathe with me. Breathing in, holding, and breathing out. And holding, and breathing in. And breathing out. Our breath is such a beautiful example of life pulse. The expansion of the in-breath and that moment, that pause at the top where we hold and appreciate the oxygen that's soaked into our lungs, and then the exhale where we go down and we feel that contraction in our lungs, and the pause at the bottom of that contraction before the next impulse to fill our lungs with oxygen again. Throughout every day, we're feeling different layers of life pulse. There's many pulses happening all at once. Our breath, the pulse of our heartbeat, the pulse of the day and the night, the pulse of the seasons, of the years, the pulse of the holidays. And then we have those pulses that are our creative expression. That spark that arises with an idea that we want to manifest, and that creative process that happens as we expand out to create and build that dream. And then that moment at the top of that expansion where we get to witness all that we have created and just take that in. And then the ride down into that deep contraction where we bring in all the lessons we learned from creating, all of the experiences that we had in that process, and we let those integrate deep down. And then another pause at the bottom of that contraction where all that we learned and all that we created marinates deep inside our core and informs the next spark. And it's important to wait in that space So you feel the next impulse to expand out again and create. Only, I personally struggle with a couple of aspects of that process. And it's not a surprise because our society really values the expansive aspect of the creative pulse. All of that outward energy, the production, the product. And there's this expectation that we have as a whole to be constantly producing. It's like that's where the value is. What are you making? What have you created? What are you, how are you making money for that matter? And there's not a lot of emphasis on what are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing to rest? How are you taking all of that creative energy and nourishing yourself? And so there's a lot of negative connotations with the contraction phase of the creative pulse. Taking that time to rest, we can often judge ourselves as being lazy, as being depressed, or, just lethargic, not getting anything done, are some of the things that's one phrase that has been coming to my mind a lot lately as I judge myself. And feel like I'm just not working hard enough. I'm not getting enough done. But the reality is that what I'm finding is, I had a spark to write my second blog post. And I got up early and I made coffee and I meditated and I sat down on my computer and I started writing. And I wrote for 2 hours straight. And maybe longer. And then I got up. I was like, wow, where did the time go, right? I couldn't believe I had that much time had passed because I was just so in the moment in writing it. And I had a lot of other things on my list for that day. And I had expected that I'd go into my office where I would, do some follow-ups and I wanted to make this video because the snow was actually falling at that moment. I thought, oh, how beautiful for a video. I had all these thoughts and ideas, but I was really tired after 3 hours of writing. 2 to 3 hours of writing was just honestly exhausting. And my family, had also things to do, and it wasn't that I sat around and did nothing all day, but I ended up prioritizing spending time with my daughter and my niece, and my husband took us on a drive, and I just rested in the car, and it was hard because throughout that whole day, I felt grumpy and frustrated with myself, like I didn't do enough today. I didn't produce enough today. And it took all the way till the end of the day when I came back and I read through what I had written and I did some editing, and I thought, wow, I worked hard today. And I took that little bit of time to just appreciate, how much effort I had already put in that day to follow a creative impulse, and allowed myself to just sit with that particular impulse and recognize that the rest of the day was part of the contraction that I needed to experience in order to be fully whole to come back to that editing process. So stripping away those layers of judgment and, and like there's this way that I feel like I can be my own dictator and just be like, shouting orders and not taking that time to really feel into what is the natural, what is my natural expression? Where does my energy naturally want to flow right now? And how can I be with that? How can I authentically be with that? And really hold gratitude and appreciation for myself, and for all that I create. So I also want to talk a bit about the creative pulse with kids, because it can be even harder to be authentically in that creative impulse with our children. And partially that's because of the way that we were treated in expressing and experiencing our own creative impulses as children. So I want to go into a personal story about myself. And the example I have isn't from childhood, but I know that my reaction to this is based on the childhood experiences that I have had. And it's funny because I can't think of a specific example from childhood. I don't have memories that can inform a more personal story from my childhood. But let me explain this particular situation a little bit. So I was in my young 20s, which technically, as far as brain development, is still childhood. And my husband and his best friend had a small music studio in our apartment, and they loved creating hip hop beats and lots of rhythms, lots of music, and lots of creative expression through creating music. And they had created one really great beat they were super excited about, and they said, oh, it'd be great to have a female rapper on this. Like, Anna, will you do some rapping for us? And, you know, at the time, some of my favorite artists were Mary J. Blige, India Arie, Jill Scott. And I loved a lot of the songs produced by artists like Nas or Talib Kweli that had these the hooks or the riffs that were a female singer. You know, often like really jazzy or soulful, so beautiful. And so I sat with my own creative impulse to be part of this musical expression, and I'm a singer. I'm not really a rapper. So without really a lot of thought, honestly, the impulse arose and I began to sing. And they immediately started laughing. I guess it wasn't what they expected, but it shut me down immediately. It immediately shut me down. And I just decided, that's it. I'm not going to be part of this musical expression anymore. I was so embarrassed and hurt. And for the next 20 years, my husband ran a music studio, and I did not express myself through singing. I'm really hoping that singing and expressing myself musically will become more and more part of this YouTube channel and this business. And if you go back through some of my previously created YouTube videos, you'll see that I do love to sing. And I'm really healing that part of myself that feels like my own creative expression isn't good enough or might be judged by others or not accepted. And I do think that a lot of this comes from the way that my own creative expression was allowed or not allowed in my home when I was a child. My dad in particular, his passion, his creative pulses come through projects and like a lot of projects and fixing things and, you know, chores. And so, you know, the things that he gets excited about are like changing your own oil or building a go-kart or fixing up a wooden boat or stacking wood. And I just remember as a child that I would be home often alone. I was what did we call that in the 80s? A latchkey kid. So I'd get home by myself and I'd have these beautiful moments of just being alone. But then I would hear my dad's car pull into the driveway and I knew right away, like I had to stop whatever I was doing and I had to shift gears because he'd come home with priority for a project that I had to be involved with him. And I did get roped into a lot of projects around building go-karts or stacking wood or different things he'd be really excited about. And I had to always put aside my own impulses to ensure that I was available to do the projects he was passionate about. And, how does this manifest then for me as a parent? That's the interesting question, because I can see that for myself, I've had to really heal my own experience of allowing for my creative expression and allowing for those authentic impulses, and being with my creativity that's not necessarily something that makes the house better, or that is like specifically creating something useful, because that was so ingrained in me as a child that it became a lot of the way that I was as a parent. And so as I've healed and just allowed myself that space to, I've done a lot of writing over the last few years. That's just like journaling or meditative writing. That's not something that I'm ever going to publish or maybe even show anybody or even go back and read again. It's just for my own expression. And there'll be a whole nother video about my experience as a child who grew up with dyslexia diagnosis, and what it's like to be an adult living with dyslexia. I'm sure I'll write about that, and finding my own expression and enjoying writing and realizing that's actually a creative expression that I love. But then also singing, learning ukulele, allowing myself to do some painting, allowing myself to do expressive movement through dance, and honestly walks in the woods, or just sitting here listening and observing the birds, the trees, the sounds. And then I can be more authentically in contact with my children when they have a creative impulse. And this has been interesting. As adults, we want to see our kids feel loved, and we want to see them succeed. And in our imaginations, that love and succeeding is often based in our own desire for what we wish we were loved and desired, and for what we wish we were seen in creating. And so we often want our children to express that dream for us. And so we can create a lot of opportunities for them to have creative experiences and expressions that are based in our wishes and dreams and hopes. The wishes and dreams and hopes that we had as children that we had to deny in order to meet our parents' expectations. And so in order to break this cycle, again, it's so important to first start with healing your own creative expression and giving yourself that space, because then that models for your children that it's okay to take time and do something you love. And often when I sit down in my own creative impulse to begin to create, we can have then a side-by-side experience. My child then pulls up her chair and brings out her paints and has her own space to create, because I'm so absorbed in what I'm doing, I'm no longer trying to control or micromanage what she's doing, which is what was so painful for me as a child in the first place. And so, one of the most important things is to really find ways to let go of our own expectations. And I wrote a little post about this on Instagram and Facebook, where I have a picture of my nephew, and he is painting salt dough ornaments that we made. And this was a moment where I had the whole day with him to start getting into some fun and creative Christmas art projects. So that was my expectation for the day. So I thought, we're going to have this whole day filled with first, mixing the dough and kneading the dough, and then rolling it out and cutting out the the shapes with cookie cutters and getting out the paints and allowing those salt dough ornaments to bake in the oven at a low temperature for a long time while we snuggle and drink hot chocolate and read books, and then we'll paint them and we'll listen to Christmas music, and there's a lot of prep work, there's a lot of mess to clean up. There's just a lot going on to make that day happen. And to be quite honest, he was not interested. He was not interested in mixing the dough with me. He was not interested in cutting out the shapes with me. He was not interested in drinking hot chocolate or reading books while we waited for them to bake. He was not interested in Christmas songs either. So, we played games. We played a lot of pretending to be superheroes, and I battled my own disappointment while pretending to have fun, to be quite honest. And then, once I think I truly let go of my expectation that this was going to be anything I had hoped it would be, I did get out the paints, and I started painting my own ornament, and there was a whole bunch of them that I did bake them off. I did all the different pieces that I had imagined we'd do together. I did on my own in between playing games, and I allowed him to use the kids' Spotify app to put on whatever music he felt like he wanted to put on. I think it was some Star Wars theme songs that ended up being what we listened to. And then, as soon as I was sitting down and painting, it was like, bing, there went his creative spark. And suddenly all the little gingerbread men I had cut out, I could just see the wheels turning, and the sparkle in his eye, and he could picture each one. This one's going to be Spider-Man. This one's going to be Iron Man. This one's going to be the Hulk. And he started painting. And I was so impressed because, to be honest, like the colors he picked out and the way he painted them, they did actually look like all the characters. And I ended up putting holes on the feet of a couple of the gingerbread men, and he painted them as Spider-Man, and we hung them like hanging upside down, so it was like I then found the doorway of meeting him and his passion and his creativity, and then we were able to find that little flow of creative juices where we could meet each other, and that maybe only lasted a few minutes, but it was fun. And he has really fond memories of it now, and I have really fond memories of it now, and it even takes me a little bit to like drag up the memory of how disappointed I was at the beginning of the day that it wasn't really meeting my expectations, and that he was really not interested in sitting and doing all the pieces that I had hoped we would do together. But we found our way. So I want to really encourage you all to find your way. What are the things that you as an adult are excited to get creative about? What are the things that you see your child being drawn towards? And how can you make more space for them to authentically express that, even if it's something you're not super interested in? My daughter has such a passion for entertainment, pop culture, Hollywood. It's not something that I feel passionate about. I feel kind of repulsed by it all, to be totally honest. But when I find that space to sit with her and getting curious about, the plot of a movie and how did the director, get the actors to play these parts, or what was the producer thinking when they decided to film it in this way? And, it's really cool to see that she's like taking this passion and picking it apart to imagine like how might she want to, express herself through film or through animation. She's been doing some animated pieces on her iPad, and So it's exciting because we can draw then connections and find little ways that can spark something in us. And so letting go of the need for our children to play out our dreams and instead allow ourselves to experience our own dreams, even in little ways, and letting go of the expectation that it becomes something grand or that we produce something, but allowing ourselves instead to like ride that experience and feel the satisfaction of truly being a witness to our own impulse. And then we can hold space to witness our children do the same, and open our hearts to love and appreciate their own expression. Even if it's a toddler just building a tower and knocking it down, when we want to build something and take a picture of it, but we never get that split second to put it on Instagram because they tackle it and knock it down before we get to have our moment. It's okay. We can let go of that need to control or micromanage how it turns out or how it looks, and just enjoy the amazing creative expression of watching something fall to the ground. I'd love to hear from you all. What are the places where you're struggling with meeting your child in their creative impulses? What are the things that they do that drive you crazy? What are the ways in which you need support to find your own creative expression? In what ways are you denying yourself to have love and a passion that maybe doesn't fit inside the box that you've created, or that society's created? So, couple last little thoughts I want to share with you that I have found that I do enjoy actually creative expression through film. And I think my daughter has been a huge doorway for me to find this. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel. I'm filming myself on my iPhone right now. And I discovered a TV production studio that has a public access channel that's free and open to the public here in my town. I've done their orientation and I've begun filming a pilot for a children's show called Circle Time with Miss Anna. At least that's what I'm calling it right now. We'll see, because creative expressions can build and grow and morph and change. And I want to be in the flow with myself as I dibble and dabble with the creative pulse in this way. So I'll probably be putting some sneak peeks of that here on YouTube. Also, my same nephew that I struggled to find the creative flow with around ornaments last year, he is really excited about this children's show, and he actually wrote a little bit of a script and as part of the first screenplay. I'm really excited that he's enjoying this idea too. So again, we're meeting each other somewhere in the middle and finding a fun, expressive, cooperative, co-creative process. And then, some of the other things is that I've been working on just like polishing up my website, and that's a place where I can find a lot of stress and pressure to be doing the behind the scenes, that it doesn't have this like instant gratification to it. But as I'm more gentle with myself, I'm finding that there's a lot more ease and flow, like the little pieces of the technical aspects that stress me out, like they become easier as I'm more gentle with myself. And that's been really exciting. And I'm excited to say that this week I'll be launching my New Year's Day kickoff party, a moment to celebrate, a moment for parents to come together and not just set resolutions that feel impossible to uphold or goals that we'll never be able to accomplish, but actually take the time together to create a new energetic expression of our own deep presence, so that we can step into 2023 from a new place and give ourselves the opportunity to be in the creative pulse of parenting, the creative impulse of raising children, and see where that takes us, and just begin to build community where we can be curious together and follow the flow and enjoy the ride. and with with that, we just might see that our children grow to be people who feel loved and valued for their own creativity, and we can see what kind of success and independence that creates in them, and the kind of satisfaction and peace and joy that we can create in our families and our lives for years to come, from just one simple moment to take some time together to shift. And as I follow my creative impulse and flow, I'm finding that at the core is this desire, this longing, this dream to be supporting others, to be with individuals through their personal process and growth, supporting them on their healing journey, as well as providing more tools and community for families who were really ready, who are really desiring to do things differently, and who are ready to step into that healing journey as a family, in order to see where it could take us, how the next generation might build the future from a foundation that starts with self-regulation, that starts with parents who are giving themselves that time to be creative and can open-heartedly provide space for their children to be creative and really find that peace and joy they're longing for. So that's my desire, is that everything that I'm creating will support you. So like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as check out my blog on my website. And that's where you'll also find some of the other offerings that that I'm beginning to put out there as that creative pulse just rises, and we're in it together. So sending you so much love, joy, and peace for this winter time. And may we continue to build community together.